That's my thing. It's not feet, it's thumbs, EJ. Don't forget.
I want that wall-crawling arachnid! I want Spider-Man!
Quizzical Crusade podcast. We're just doing quizzes now.
It's fun.
It's creatively bankrupt!
Yeah, it's relevant to us.
I want pictures of Spider-Man!
It's accurate.
I watched Spider-Man 2 today.
Hold up.
Every time I watch a Raimi Spider-Man movie, I am blown away that those were the biggest things on the face of the planet the years they came out.
So that's a no on does it hold up from EJ, I guess.
I love those movies. I even like the third one. But I know Sam Raimi, his whole thing is like camp and like over the top. But the more that I have done in the industry over the decade, the more I think Sam Raimi is just kind of bad.
You have to respect Army of Darkness and the Evil Dead trilogy as a whole.
If it's your thing, I mean, it's a really weird niche to be into, but like
comedy horror?
No, that is a very popular series.
Ghostbusters, it's fine if it's your thing.
I watched it like 2-3 years ago because I was curious about it, and I had some similar feelings, man, where I was just like, Raimi's style is so specific that I was like, does this not work anymore? I'm willing to just accept it as like a time and place thing. Like when the octopus arms are coming back to life and we get this like super fast like push in on the knife that's being picked up, and I'm just like, oh boy, like this is really Sam Raimi.
Sam Raimi to me is a little George Lucas-esque. Time and place, important, but you start to kind of see through the cracks a little bit and you think, oh, this is just a college kid who never really adapted to, what a lot of his peers were doing. He just kind of stayed a college kid making weird things, and a lot of it doesn't work. Some of it does, and it's fine.
I respect a auteur who has a vibe and sticks with it, as opposed to one who's just trying to do what their peers are doing. Like, that's creatively bankrupt, EJ. Call back.
I would definitely rather folks like make the movie they want to make, and it's going to work for some and it's not going to work for some others. Always would rather see that movie. Because at the very least, we're getting some more distinct aesthetics into theaters. What Spider-Man 2 does that I appreciate so deeply that I still have not seen a single other superhero film, certainly not in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, do, is it dares to let its hero just walk away and go consider, maybe I'm just not that guy, and maybe I don't want to be that guy. Maybe my life would be better if I'm not that guy. And seeing that shot of him just dumping the suit in the garbage can and walking away.
Yeah, an iconic run in the comic books.
He wrote that script. He said, we will move this to the stage. To the screen. There's been plenty of great stuff in comics arcs, as you've said, that Marvel's never going to touch. They're never going to put that into their cinematic universe because it's a sausage factory. They want it all to be really samey. We're going to get a Secret Wars adaptation, I'm sure, that is going to be so watered down and so poorly done with regards to the source material that I'm going to hate it a lot. I'm already sure, based on the way that this phase has gone, Secret Wars is going to be absolutely horrible. And that is like one of my favorite Marvel Comics arcs is Secret Wars.
Secret Wars is cool for kids who are like, wow, look at all these guys together doing this crazy thing in space, but it's not that
You
good.
literally just described Avengers Infinity War, and it worked. Like, it can be done. It can be done, but I don't have faith they're going to do it. No, I like what Raimi did with the Spider-Man 2 and sort of the necessity of, I have to be the one to do this, even though I'm going to just acknowledge that I don't want to, and my life would be better if I didn't. And they hit all those beats so well.
See, what's funny? As a kid and into my early adulthood, 2 was always the black sheep for me. I liked 1 and 3 better. And I know 3 has a lot of problems and some really goofy shit, but I always liked 1 and 3 better. 1 I love, dude. Willem Dafoe is unmatched. Like, Alfred Molina is great at what he does, but like Willem Dafoe is fucking iconic, and he is just chewing the scenery, bro. Every line in that movie is just iconic.
Back to formula.
Back to formula.
Here's the truth, plain and simple.
Out am I? It's so good, dude. The thing about the second movie that I am realizing today, and might factor into why I didn't love it so much. I mean, it's good. I mean, there's some really fucking great scenes in that, and the whole final fight and the train sequence, like, great. Dude, the scene where Peter tells Aunt May, like, what happened the night of Ben's murder, and you're sitting there watching it, and you're just like, I know everything, but we're still gonna monologue about it. And then he comes back the next day or the week later, whatever it was, and Aunt May, like, forgives him and says it's water under the bridge, and I'm proud of you for telling me. And that whole bit from her just gets me all choked up inside. I'm like, oh, man. So I felt that. But everything else in the movie is pretty much a direct rehash of the first movie. Like, even down to we have the same scene in the car with Uncle Ben. And I know it's supposed to be like, oh, it's a callback. And it's like, we already went through this character arc of like, great power, great responsibility. Like, we just did this 2 years ago. Why are we doing it all over again? The Harry Osborn shit is fucking terrible. Like, he saves at the beginning of the movie, he swings in and saves him, and then it just like Dutch angles on fucking James Franco. He's like, this changes nothing. And it's just like in the middle of an action sequence. Like, what is this? It's so bad.
It doesn't help that James Franco can't act himself out of a paper bag.
And he was especially bad.
Such a twat.
Not the quality of his character. I'm just saying he can't act.
Yeah. Anyway, Spider-Man 2.
Relevant.
Console Crusade podcast.
Next week.
Spider-Man.
Happy for you guys.
At the time of this release, we are 9 days away.
And I can no longer afford it. So, sorry, EJ.
Don't do this to me.
I literally wish I had a choice in the matter. But my cat...
Hide your wishbones better. How did it get a wishbone? What happened?
I
know cats are stupid and it's not your fault, but still.
Tiffany left it on the counter. I do not want her to beat herself up any more than she already has. And you asked, so I'm going to tell you that is how the wishbone was left out. But Houdini swallowed a whole wishbone out of an admittedly small-sized chicken, which is probably the only reason why she was able to get it down. When we noticed the wishbone was gone, we figured it was Ridley's fat ass who jumped up and got it off the counter. So we were monitoring them. Houdini had a bowel movement that gave clear indication that there was irritation happening in her guts. So off we went to the pet hospital, and the x-ray showed that she had swallowed that fucker whole. And you cannot send that up by vomiting, and you cannot send it down with a bowel movement because it is a wishbone, and it is wishbone shaped, which means it will get caught on everything and cause tearing and perforations and stuff. So Houdini got to have emergency surgery that cumulatively with the exam, the x-rays, the fact that she had to be kept for 3 days while they got her temperature down. She had a really light fever after the surgery. Even the surgery was totally successful. They had to open her up, take her little stomach out of her little body, open up her stomach, and get all the crap out of it. And then sew that up, put that back in, sew that back up. About $3,000. And thankfully, I have been really responsible through the summer and into the fall of maintaining my emergency fund for just such things. So amidst my frivolity and all of the purchasing that I've talked about on this podcast, I'm really thankful that I had been wise about that at least. But that took out all of that, most of what I had in my checking account for the rest of the month. And Tiff had to put a little bit on, had to put some on a credit card. We're probably going to kick up a little GoFundMe and try and recoup a little bit of bucks, but yeah, dude, my disposable income is completely gone for the whole rest of the month. And this is the bad part about not pre-ordering games, which I still maintain is the right way to go, to not pre-order anything. But because I did not have it pre-ordered, I now do not have money to buy it or Mario. So I'm not going to be able to do any of that stuff until next month, which is really disappointing. I've got plenty of shit to play. I was just really looking forward to talking about what's happening in the now with the boys. So RIP my wallet.
Well, that is the unfortunate reality sometimes of being a pet owner, but
Yep.
that comes with the territory. That's what credit cards are for.
Folks, we love our pets.
I would pay an irrational amount of money if it meant saving
No
my
price
cat's life.
too great.
I mean,
Quite
I
literally.
will not. And so when we were on the drive over to the vet, when we were bringing her in for her emergency exam, and this is a good practice if we have any pet owners listening who are new to the pet ownership game.
Go to progressive.com and get pet insurance immediately. That's the advice.
We have pet insurance through Tiffany's work now that she did not know she had available to her. But in future, we will be reimbursed 70% of all veterinary expenses for our cats. So that'll be great for future Chris and Tiffany. Anyway, on the way, when you're on the drive to the vet, have the conversation about money then, because you will not be able to have that conversation when you are being faced with a bill and the decision of, do we save our cat or do we not save our cat? So we already had a number in mind that was like, this is what we can do for the surgical cost. And it was within that. And so again, very fortunate, because if it had been a $4,000 surgery on top of all the exam fees and on top of having to board her for 3 days while they were treating her and getting her temperature down, it could have been a much different outcome.
Yeah, maybe you'd be playing Spider-Man next week, but
Yeah, I'd
on
also
worse circumstances.
yeah, I'd be taking like 2 days off of work and being an absolute miserable wreck of a person.
Our philosophy with pet ownership is if it's like a kid, like you're not going to let your kid die because it costs $4,000. And if we can't bear the financial burden of worst case scenario, then we are not able to have pets. And that is, I mean,
Respect.
you hope it never happens. You hope it never happens. But I got into this with a buddy of mine. I'm not going to throw him under the bus, but he was talking about, like, if my dog started peeing in the house, I just put him down. And I was like, what the fuck, bro? You can just kill your dog because he's inconvenient, you piece of shit.
Classic dog owner move. A cat owner would never. A cat owner would literally never. I'd be like, I'll put a litter box in the spot where you peed. Is that better, baby?
Oh, man. Yeah, so that's just the unfortunate reality you hope you never, ever have to face as a pet owner. But, you know, if it happens, it happens. And, you know, you figure out how to make the credit card bill till, you know, we figure it out. But, and your cat was only, what, she's only 3?
She is just about 4 years old. So that was the other part of the calculus, right? Like, she's young, which meant that there was functionally no additional risk associated with the surgery. It was really straightforward. So if they'd have been like, hey, it's $3,500, I'm like, well, knowing that it will be successful, I may be willing to spend a little bit more money. If they were like, well, she could die on the table, like with older cats, they often cannot be anesthetized because they'd be worried that their vital functions would not return. But there's no risk associated with that with a 4-year-old cat. And also, it's a 4-year-old cat that I fully plan on having until she's somewhere between 14 and 20. Like, as long as she stays healthy otherwise, and we don't leave any more chicken bones out on the counter. Also, shout out Daisy. We love Daisy. I'm not trying to lump you in with those other pieces of shit, Daisy. We love you.
She's a good dog, but she does not respect boundaries. EJ knows that full well.
She's a dog that you love, and I love that for you.
No, you got chased by a dog once, and now you'll never respect them.
Fucking Bob was in the Discord the other day. He just talks so much shit to me about being a cat guy. And it just bothers the fuck out of me because I'm like, listen, cats are superior in almost every way, but I don't sit here talking shit about your dog in your face until you start shit talking me, bitch.
Hey, Bob, who took one off of Joe Woe in the last night of Warzone 1? I don't think it was you, pal. Don't think it was you, pal.
I am Joe Woe now. Oh my God. Okay, we were playing Call of Duty the other night.
Yeah, you're still on it, even though it's dead. You're still playing. You sick man.
No, so we're playing Warzone 2 right now, and it's a fucking terrible game. Every night I say, I don't know how many times, I fucking hate this game, but there's no other game that everyone can play. So we're just stuck with it, and it feels terrible. Call of Duty Next was this weekend, and they showed Modern Warfare 3 and Call of Duty, not 3, Warzone 3, but like the next iteration of Warzone, which is going to be drastically different. Fingers crossed, we hope. But we were playing the other night, and Bob's computer keeps crashing for some reason. So for like almost 2 hours, we sat there get into a game, Bob crashes, we back out of the game, Bob crashes, we back out of a game. And instead of just being like, hey, I'm going to hop out so one of our other friends who's sitting here waiting to play can play, he just sat, and then every time he crashed, and we would start a game without him, he'd be like, what the fuck, I'm here. Crash again. Like 2 hours of this. And I was like, Bob, go uninstall your fucking game and don't talk to me until it's completely reinstalled. Don't look at me, don't think about me until you've done that.
Did he buy his computer from your brother? Like, why is it crashing so
No
much?
shit. I said the same thing to my brother too. I said, bitch, fresh install this fucking game on a new hard drive. Just do it.
Take your RAM out and put it back in. Just anything.
The bare minimum. And guess what? Solved all the fucking problems. And then today, I was still salty about it. And so I hit up Jared and Andrew in the chat to play with Brendan and I today. And Bob was just like, wow, I don't know. It's the middle of the day. I don't know if your fucking computer's working. I didn't fucking invite you. Get over it. And then he hops in, like half hour later or whatever, he hops in. We back out of our game, get him into the fucking party, and he immediately says, I have to take a work call. And he spends the entire game laying prone in a corner. And I was just like, Bob, this is why you don't get invited to things. Kicked from the party. Anyway, that's my Bob rant.
Classic Bob. Am I right?
Bro, okay, I'm Bob, I know you're not going to listen to this. I'm just ripping on him right now. Nick, I told a story the other day. Do you remember, tell me if you remember this. We were like 20, and we were at Sherry's 24-hour diner, and Bob was there.
Yeah, buddy.
Bob told a joke, and you laughed at the joke. And Bob said, well, it must not have been that funny because only half your face laughed. You immediately went from laughing to stone cold and said, yeah, I had Bell's palsy when I was a teenager. And Bob was just like, didn't know what to do with that information. And I will always remember that because you were a good sport about it, but you definitely dialed up the, I'm going to fuck with you now, dude. Like, just hit him with it.
In that magical place where it's like a friend of a friend, so you're like sort of being jokey with them, have a little bit of camaraderie, but you can flip it if you really want to, or turn it serious, and they won't know if you're fucking with them. So exactly. Yeah, I don't remember that specifically, but that tracks.
I reminded him of this story because it's so vivid in my brain, it happening and how fucking awkward Bob felt. He did feel bad. He was just, he's making a joke, whatever, but he is like, fuck. And I reminded him of this and he cringed so hard. He's like, don't fucking tell me that. And now whenever I bring you up, he just is like, shame. I still got your back all these years later, man.
Hey, Bob, does your computer have Bell's palsy? Because it's only half working right now.
Got him!
Off and on, dude. Off and on.
I've needed to get this out of my system this week. Just between the crashing and between just... I rage quit in the middle of a game last night for the first time in a while. Like, I did not rage quit. I didn't yell. Instead of screaming at my friends, I just tabbed out and closed the game. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I was dead and I was watching Bob's cam, and I was like, I can't do this. I have to recuse myself from the situation immediately.
Well, good for you, man. That's growth.
I just saw that Nick sent something, but I don't see where it was sent to.
Wait, whoa,
That's so good.
Where is it? Oh, fuck. Oh, no.
Must not have been that funny. That is so good, dude. Okay. This is
man.
actually the Console Crusade podcast now that we've been recording for half an hour. You want to do news first? You want to do Wii Honorable Mention first?
Let's do the Wii Honorable Mention.
You want to kick us off? Have you done enough research?
No, hell no. I've done no research.
Okay.
We've talked about before, none of us have like supreme fondness for the Wii in general.
No.
And EJ even joked like, oh, should we just talk about how he liked Subspace Emissary and Smash Brothers Brawl again for the umpteenth time?
How many times?
It's a good mode.
It is. It's great. I wish they would have brought it back, but Sakurai was butthurt that it got leaked a month early last time, so he never did it again.
Smash Run was good.
Smash Run was good, but they didn't bring it to the consoles.
World of Light was good. I liked World of Light. It's not Subspace Emissary,
it was okay.
But I appreciated the stab. I have all my like 3 different titles for every single Nintendo console because I'm neurotic, and as soon as we're going to do this segment, I just wrote all of them. So if you need some vamping time, I'm happy to lead in for y'all.
I have games for every console except for the Wii, which I kind of cheated, and we'll talk about that in a second. But so the honorable mentions is a This is a little segment we did at post Top 100, episode 100. Check it out. 6 hours of us mostly arguing with each other. We started doing this just as a way to highlight some of our favorite games that didn't make it onto the list, because Top 100, between three of us who've played games for 30 years, it's kind of a tough list to narrow down. But we stopped at the Wii because it's the Wii, and it is notoriously hated by at least one of us, and not really played by another of us. So we just kind of didn't do this anymore. But now we're back to it. Chris, give us your earnest and unironic Nintendo Wii honorable mention.
I've been waffling between a couple of titles, and I do have 3 titles down. And no matter which way I play this, I'm going to open myself up to a merciless assault. And so I am just going to...
one does, Chris.
I'm going to commit to the bit. And that's totally fine. God. And my unironic title for a hidden gem on the Nintendo Wii is Metroid Other M.
Okay, we've come full circle.
Nick just had a Vietnam flashback. I saw it in his eyes.
Well, no, you'd already mentioned this. This has been teased. It has been foreshadowed. So I just wanted to hear what you want to say about it, because I know that you also don't like it for the reasons why everyone didn't like it. But talk about it.
I was gonna originally. I came in tonight thinking I was gonna do Trauma Team. Actually, but I don't know. Other M just feels right today. So this is an interquel that takes place between Super Metroid and Metroid Fusion. It's Nintendo published but developed by Team Ninja, which is known for the Dead or Alive series. Yeah,
mostly for Ninja Gaiden at that point, but yes, also a lot of Dead or Alive.
Yeah. And they had promised to bring these sort of like a more narrative form of storytelling to Metroid, and that they were going to expound upon a lot of things that I had wondered about for a really long time after Metroid Fusion, learning about Adam Malkovich, who was Samus's former commanding officer that she named her ship computer after, her time with the Galactic Federation before she went solo as a bounty hunter. And they were sort of showing us in all of these like trailer cinematics that we were really going to get a good look at this. What ended up happening with the narrative is what ends up happening with a lot of Japanese narratives that center female characters, which is that they get a bit reductive. And they kind of took a lot of the dials that were sort of already present on the Metroid narrative control board, so to speak, and just like cranked them way up. So like Samus's maternal instincts with the baby Metroid, which is like literally not even ever actually expounded upon. It's just, we know that it bonded with her and it sacrificed itself for her, so there is a bond. But they were like, well, she's a woman, so maternal instinct, and just slammed that button as hard as they fucking could. She's all traumatized about the baby Metroid having died for her, and going to a bottle ship that is emitting a baby's cry distress signal. I mean, they were not subtle about this at all. And it's
the
really...
baby.
Yeah, I would like to see the baby. It's fucking obnoxious because Samus as a character has been really emblematic of a good way to include strong female characters in media, which is just they're women and they happen to be strong. And it doesn't have to be about their femininity or their maternal instincts or their female identity-based markers. The story just is the story, and they happen to also be a woman. And this kind of Uno reversed it and got into this weird like daddy issue relationship with Adam, that she goes to the ship and he's running an operation there. And so she's going to defer to him, which is how they Metroid all of your abilities, is that Samus rolls in with her full slate of abilities. And Adam's like, well, this is my operation. You can't use these like heavy ordinances. And Samus is like, okay, ooh, and turns off all of her fucking weapons in the middle of a literal war zone, as far as they know.
Including the Varia suit in a lava section.
And waits for Adam to tell her, you can turn your weapons back on, sweetheart. And so all that shit just makes no goddamn narrative sense at all. There's also a bunch of plot holes. like the eraser, like
the deleter.
the deleter. There we go. This like double agent, and I don't
nothing burger of a side story.
You don't ever really get to know who it is or why they're there or anything. It's just that does not work at all.
You do get to fight a forklift though. Just
you do
bring it back to the pros.
Shout out Nick and the forklift crew. Although Nick, you've graduated from forklift. Anyway, in spite of all that, it does give us some really interesting lore, like Samus's time at the Galactic Federation as a cadet. The game looks really good as far as like Wii games go. It's really well, it's really beautiful as much as it could be on like a 480i console or whatever the Wii was outputting. It's a good looking game. It has a clear art design with regards to like Samus's suit that I think was really successful and carried forward into her Smash designs for quite some time. It's a good looking version of the power suit and the various suit for sure. And gameplay wise, it plays really well and it does a lot of stuff that we're now seeing done better, admittedly, in Metroid Dread, but it's a classic like Other M walked so that Dread could run kind of situation. That Mercury Steam clearly saw some of the stuff like Sense Move, I think is what they called it in Other M, that with good timing, you could dodge out of the way of enemy attacks and get into a little cinematic section where you could do a whole bunch of extra damage. Like, I can't remember what the name of the creature is, but the one that I remember the most, you'd hit the dodge button, Samus would kind of cartwheel around to the side, jump up on the back of it, grab it with her offhand, and you would just like pump missiles into the back of its head, which is very much what we see. Well, it's the progenitor of what we see in Samus Returns and definitely in Metroid Dread with regards to things like the parry system, of trying to make Samus feel more like a physical threat because she has combat training and a fucking powered exoskeleton made out of unbreakable metals. It would make perfect sense that she would just like beat a bitch with her arm cannon. Like that makes perfect sense. And Other M was the first to do that. They also had a good way of acknowledging and using the motion control of the Wii without designing the entire game around it in the way that Corruption kind of did, sometimes successfully, sometimes not. That this is a like 2D, 3D game where you are in 3D environments moving generally in 2 dimensions. But you can point the Wii remote at the screen at any time to switch into a first person mode and fire missiles at things in the environment or use the grapple beam on things in the environment to expose secrets and new pathways and stuff like that. It also brings back a couple of really great bosses and renders them in beautiful 3D graphics like the Queen Metroid. There is a Queen Metroid that is one of the final bosses that you fight in this game, and it was really cool to see a Queen Metroid rendered on console graphics in 3 dimensions. Like, that was awesome. There's also a fight against Fantoon, I think that's his name? Fantoon? Fantoon, the Super Metroid enemy, also rendered in like beautiful 3-dimensional graphics.
Yeah, so it's like a weird final boss before the escape sequence. It's weird.
Again, there's a lot of stuff that it's like, okay, we clearly missed the mark here, but like gameplay wise, it's a fun game. It feels good. Like it's a good 2D Metroid that does a lot of things really well systems wise. It's got some good music. The level design feels kind of like a copy pasta of the fusion idea of all these different biomes, but they do it really well. Like it's rendered really beautifully and interestingly. And it's a game. It's one of the only Metroids I have not replayed, again, for obvious reasons, that I actually would rather like to go back to and take a look at with fresh eyes now and see how much of this stuff is as cringy as I remember, and how much maybe just in the moment wasn't what I was looking for. And there's probably going to be a fair amount of column A and a little bit of column B too. But it's a good game. It's worth playing in spite of some of those issues that I articulated. And maybe if we ever get a Switch port, I don't know why we would, but if we ever get some version of this game to play on modern consoles, I'd be interested to see what the reception's like now.
Yeah, I think if you did revisit Other M, you would definitely be more mad at certain things and also more forgiving of others. Like I remember at the time, people were like pissed that Samus's voice acting was very stoic and like muted. But I think that's fine. I think the vocal performance of the characters were totally reasonable. It's just that the script was ass. So there's like no saving what they're saying. based on their performance. Like they're not going to act their way out of a bad script. But I thought it was a totally cromulent performance.
Nick, do you have a game you want to talk about?
I mean, I could give a lot of shout outs. I don't know what I want to spend like a decent amount of time on. Do you have something specific that you've already picked out?
Yeah, I mean, the top of the list is Super Mario Bros. Wii, because I did make the top 100, and that game we played a lot of back in the day. And, you know, it was the exciting new co-op mechanics, and especially for a home, we largely only played PlayStation or classic Nintendo consoles. So, you know, we didn't have an N64 at the time. It was mostly trading sticks on single-player games. And so to get a game like Mario where you're not going life or level and you can both play, that was awesome. But I've talked about that game, and the further I get away from it, it's not like I don't know if we were recording when we talked about it, but it's like, it's just another fucking 2D Mario game, and there's nothing really special about it. The rest of my honorable mentions are like games that I really like, but I didn't play them on the Wii, but they have Wii versions, right? So things like Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, things like Star Wars Force Unleashed, Guitar Hero 3.
Not really Wii games, just games that happen to also come out on Wii. Yeah, right. I get that.
And I know we talked about how we were just at the age where we weren't really playing games like we were as kids or like we are now. You know, I was still rocking my PlayStation and occasionally the GameCube until I traded my GameCube for a DS. And that's pretty much what carried me all the way through high school. I mean, I bought every Pokemon game all the way through high school. And that was kind of it for games until I got back into the retro thing in like 2011, probably. So it was in no small part because the Wii is such an awful console, but it was also just sort of that time in our lives, you know, where we just had more important things going on by and large. So today on Reddit, someone had posted, I think looking for a genuine answer, not just trolling or something, but they said, like, who has the better game, or what has the better game library? What do you look back on more fondly in 2023, the Wii or the Wii U? And I don't even know how it's a debate. I know we'll talk about Wii U next week or whatever, but I don't even know how you could possibly even make the argument that the Wii has a better library, has a bigger library. That's for sure. But a better library? Come on. So we could open that can of worms, but I don't know.
I have no argument, so it's not going to be a very deep can, like tuna can sized, maybe. Not a lot of worms, EJ.
I think we kind of talked about it on the
console
tier list. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only how many franchises the Wii U introduced, 2 all-time, I would argue, franchises, but it just has the best version of all these fucking games. It's like, you know, people are like, oh, but the Wii had Skyward Sword. I'm like, the Wii U had Breath of the fucking Wild. Who cares about Skyward Sword? It had Twilight Princess and Wind Waker. What more do you want?
Hey, the Wii had Twilight Princess too.
It had the worst version of that game that exists across 3 different consoles. Yes, that is correct.
I think it was widescreen. It's not the worst version. It's just a weird flip version with forced waggle.
The worst version.
I wouldn't call it the worst. It's different. Like I would prefer to play. I mean, obviously there's a reason why they chose the GameCube version to upscale, but neither here nor there. Since you mentioned a few games, I'll just mention a few as well. So my experience with the Wii was very much I just got a Wii U. Let's check out some Wii games that I never got around to playing. So like over a summer, I was just like going pretty hard on the back catalog as far as like playing Mario Galaxy 2, Super Paper Mario. I bought Okami for the Wii,
the
Wii version of Okami, and I bought the Metroid Prime trilogy on the eShop. You know, so that was my my experience with the Wii, was a look back, and I think there are some people who have trouble going back to old games. I don't think I'm really one of them. I sometimes can like bump my head up against some game experiences, especially on systems that I never had any sort of experience on. Like I don't think I could really go back and enjoy Atari games, for example, or even a lot of PS1 games. Like I just don't have that kind of memory or context. And sometimes I can get into it, but sometimes I can't. But playing stuff like Super Paper Mario is like, yeah, this is, you know, a perfectly good game. Like I had a lot of fun with that. That was a really nice time. The writing was really funny. But it's it's hard to look at it in the context of, okay, so Sticker Star came out a couple years ago and Color Splash just came out, and now I'm going back to play Super Paper Mario, and this is like the downfall of what was a like highly beloved and critically acclaimed and amazing RPG series and turned into like kind of a watered down adventure kind of game. And I'm glad that I have the context and have played it, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend people play it. It's like watch a YouTube video, see what it was all about, but I still think it's like a good game. It's just hard to contextualize that when it's like, okay, they took this path. This was the bad path, and now we all suffer for it. Galaxy 1 and 2 were really good. They're not top tier 3D Mario games for me. Galaxy 1 was better than Galaxy 2. People like to say that Galaxy 2 is better. It just isn't. Galaxy 1 is so much more charm.
No. That's crazy.
Like Galaxy 2 is like, oh, we had more ideas for Galaxy. And in some ways, a lot of the powers are cooler. Like the cloud power up is awesome. And I think the drill is in Galaxy 2. So there's like some better powers, but the sum of the whole is more than just the individual parts. And just having the Comet Observatory makes Galaxy 1 just leagues ahead of Galaxy 2 and its stupid Mario Head spaceship for choosing levels. Like that was just like slapdash cheap. But yeah, I mean, I can't argue about it too much because I both think they're like 8s. So
Odyssey, your favorite 3D Mario game?
It's the best 3D Mario game.
Well, that's, yeah, for sure.
I love 64 as well. I think Odyssey is a 10. 64 is like a 9.5. Galaxy 1 and 2 are 8s. Sunshine is like a 7.5.
Oh,
we're getting numbers out of you. I love it.
I'm not being baited into this. We've already talked about this when we did the 3D.
Well, it's a good game that controls well, but it's broken, and like the physics are like the amount of bugs that game has. It's so obvious that game was rushed out, and the blue coins are asinine. The structure of the game is poor. The mechanics are good.
The structure's poor. It's literally Mario 64, except you're jumping into ink splashes instead of paintings. Like
and each level is just the same.
No, I don't agree with that at all. It looks better. It feels better. It responds better. You push a button, you know what it's going to do. You don't have to wonder if turning around is going to make you run in a big wide circle in one direction and off a fucking cliff in the way that Mario 64 will. No, Sunshine's great. 7.5. Get out of here.
They took 7 years to make Sunshine, and they somehow made a worse game than Mario 64. Like, yeah, I'm being generous by giving it a 7.5.
Again, it's not worse. Mario 64 is awful by any standard of anybody playing a game. It's not a good game.
Chris, we are truly alone in our feelings.
This is EJ. You went on that big rant when we talked about Metroid Prime Remastered when you were like, no one is reviewing this game from a place of, let me play this game right now. That is exactly how I feel about Mario 64. And all of the people that I talked to that played 64 on the 64 and played it in 3D were like, oh my God, it's so, look how well they've upscaled this. And wow, they've really made it a lot easier to move the camera around. And I'm like, what the fuck are you smoking? Because I would love to have some of it, because you are in a fantasy land. This is not fun. It does not respond well. It's cute. It's a great experiment in what is theoretically possible in three-dimensional space. I think anybody who goes back to that game is doing so for nostalgia and not because it is still fun and enjoyable to play.
At least Mario didn't do what Halo did and just keep making the same bad game over and over while they were surpassed by all of their peers. Mario went on to make many, many, many more good games. So I'm very grateful for that at the very least. And I don't have to live with Mario 64 over and over the way I do with like Pokemon or something, by and large. So thank God for that. Do you think we're getting a Mario Odyssey 2, or do you think they're going to throw us a curveball and do like a...
I think at this point it'll be wholly different.
Yeah?
It'll be Super Mario something.
But it'll be a 3D Mario.
Yeah, there will be a 3D Mario within the first year and a half of the next console.
It's been 6 years? Over 6 years now?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Time flies. Chris has got a concerning look on his face. He's listening to something. Well, anyway.
Quick shout out before we move off of the Wii. something I do want to go back and play, maybe not necessarily on the Wii, but just in general. I know it was only on the Wii and also on Windows, but it is Strong Bad's cool game for attractive people.
Did you play that game?
No, but I want to. I mean, it's a early point and click Telltale game, but with Strong Bad and like the actual writers of the show and stuff. And like, hell yeah, I love Homestar Runner and all that stuff. I'd really like to play that.
I remember trying to get a copy of this like in 2015.
Did they make a physical copy of it?
I gotta look this up now. I gotta fact check this.
I'm not seeing a complete price, but I'm seeing a loose price of $35 and a new price, so sealed at $48 for the PC version. So I don't think there was
PC version. That sounds.
I don't think there was a Wii print for it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I mean, it was a WiiWare game, so I don't know if really a lot of those did. Maybe some of the more niche kind of indie kind of titles that got limited run kind of releases later. Because there were like Wii games coming out in like 2015, 2016. Like Let's Dance was just the Wii version at that point. Which is ridiculous.
Dude, there's so much like weird Homestar Runner merch. $110 for some Series 2 figurines. What is this? Does Homestar Runner still exist?
Yeah, they're still making cartoons occasionally. I follow one of the guys on Twitter, and he like responds to fan art and stuff like that, like in character as Strong Bad and stuff. So it's like he's just keeping the bit going, you know.
Good for him.
Seems like a chill guy. They put out like a Trogdor board game recently, like in the last year, I want to say.
I always forget, like I always think, oh, Homestar Runner was such a niche weird thing that only the weirdos were into in like grade school. But Trogdor was in Guitar Hero. They
broke through.
They had a moment in the zeitgeist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, 10-inch Homestar Runner Kick the Cheat plush, 2003. Voice Works, $325 starting bid.
Yeah.
Wow.
Our buddy Sam had that. You can still get, I think they have a line on Fangamer or IM8-bit, one of the two. Yeah, I want to say. You can buy a pin set, buy a tote bag. There's a Strong Bad talking plush.
Strong Bad sings
on vinyl.
Oh my God.
A Stinko Man double deuce.
Strong Bad's game for attractive people or whatever it's called. That was
a cool game for attractive people.
Yeah, that was a Wii game.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up.
Isn't that a Telltale game?
Yeah, that was a Telltale game.
Welcome back, Chris.
Sorry,
he was disposed.
I just need to remind my darling wife, and she knows this, and she just forgets. I assume, because of my own anxious mind and body, that if she knows that I'm teaching a class or that I am like recording or something, that if I get a phone call or a voice memo, I assume it is immediately urgent. Most of the time, it's not. Most of the time, she has simply forgotten that I am doing something. But that is the way in which I'm like, if you need me urgently, contact me in this manner. If you don't need me urgently, send me a text message and I will reply to it at my leisure. And I'm like, oh, a 2.5-minute voice memo. This is probably important. And it really was not at all to this exact moment in time. So sorry if I sound slightly salty on the listen back later this week, Tiff, but...
Was she ranting about the Blazers again, just like EJ in your voice memos?
Was it 7.5 minutes long? Was it 14 minutes long?
2.5. EJ, just fucking call me.
I figure you're in class, so I can send you a voice memo. You can listen to it when you're walking to the bus or whatever.
That's true. I can.
You
and
know?
I do.
He's just being respectful.
Yeah,
he is. And Nate and I do the same thing where I'll like, you know, like I'll get home and he'll have just gotten out of a show and I'll have like 8 minutes worth of 40-second voice memos just about a bunch of stuff about the show. And I'm like, great. And I'll just be like, listening, walking around the apartment. And I'm like, ha, man, that's funny. Or, oh, that sounds cool. Or, you know, I don't know. It's just millennial correspondence, right? We are averse to talking on the phone, but we'll send voice memos back and forth, which is literally being on the phone without being on the phone.
Heaven help me if I talk to another person who has the opportunity to also talk. I do not want that.
No, I don't mind talking on the phone. I hate texting. I hate texting, man. And I'll do it when I have to, but I would much rather just podcast to my friends or hop on a phone call, you know?
That's the Kiss fan in you.
Yeah, absolutely.
AKA the boomer in you.
Yeah, thanks, John Olson. Let's jump over to news here. I'm going to pick up this Homestar Runner, the fucking Trogdor, or the Strong Bad Sings. This is just such a fucking trip. I can't believe this exists.
Isn't that hilarious?
Do I want a DJ to cheat? Vinyl slip mat? Hell yeah, I do. pimp out my fucking turntable, brother.
It does look really nice. It's got Famuhu gods on it.
Fahuka gods.
Forlingrads.
I'm just gonna call you Fahuka gods.
That's so good. All right. We got news. We're going to start right off with today, 10/10/23. The previously leaked PS5 Slim model has been confirmed by Sony. They've also unfortunately confirmed that the $499 version will have a detachable disk drive. Remove $50 from that price to get the digital-only version. And that this will soon supplant the original PS5 from 3 years ago, almost.
Yep.
Why manufacture an entire... I mean, something about the manufacturing process must have gotten cheaper or more efficient, right?
It's definitely a die shrink, so it's cheaper to produce. It takes up less space, so you can ship more from production over to the States where most of their units are being sold. And it's a stealth increase in unit price because everywhere else in the world, they got a unit increase for both the digital version and the full-fledged disc version. The US didn't get that, but now if you want to have a digital version, that's $50 more expensive. If you get the bundle or whatever that comes with the disc drive attached already, you still have to pay $30 to get the vertical stand, which used to be just bundled in with your console.
You used to just be able to stand your console without a stand.
Yeah, I mean, heaven forbid. Anyway, so yeah, I think a lot of it is it's cheaper to produce and they could ship more. I mean, that's what Slim models were in the past, so it stands to reason that that's what it is now. But it's also a combined sort of two-pronged reasoning to also increase the price for the US without it being like, oh, we're just going to start charging you more for no reason, aka PS Plus. This actually is like, oh, at least it's a new thing, like whatever. But this kind of puts to bed a little bit of the doom and gloom about the we're just not going to have an ability, like they're going to make it even harder for people to get a disc-based console. Like I still think that the $50 extra, I think more people will be buying the $500 version of this console.
As they have been the whole time, right?
I have a clarifying question. My understanding was the option to add the Ultra HD Blu-ray drive, that's still coming standard. Like, it's not that that's not going to be a part of the standard edition, but that you will be able to purchase it for use with the digital version if you want to, like, play 4K discs, ostensibly.
If you decide to upgrade in the future, you can just buy the add-on a year later or whatever.
Yeah. They charge you more for doing that, but you can also like buy the digital only version of the console and then later buy the disc drive.
Right. So I don't know. It feels a little bit less like getting us more comfortable with only digital media. And I share your wariness for that, EJ, for a lot of reasons, besides the fact that I'm physical pilled and want to have all my cases and all my games, but also because of your rightful concerns with regards to digital ownership, and I use that term really, really loosely, and the dangers.
There is no
of that.
digital ownership.
There exactly. There is no digital
You own
ownership.
a license that can be revoked at any moment,
at any time, in a way that a physical disc just will not. You can put that in and you can play it, and it will play the game.
It'll play a version of the game, probably not the version that you remember, but at least it's there.
Yeah, right. But I think it's cool that you can, for the people who use this as a DVD player, right? Like all the way back since like the PS2 days or whatever, since it's been able to play DVDs and then Blu-ray. And like my PS3, I've never owned a Blu-ray player because I owned a PS3 and I owned a PS4. And now I will never own a 4K ultra high definition player because I have a PS5. And I could just pop Blade Runner 2049 or whatever into that and watch it in glorious ultra high definition. So it feels like that is what the expansion drive is for with the digital version, is people who would like to be able to watch their movies without having a designated device. Or if they decide they get FOMO about not owning discs, I guess, but that's like weird. That will be weirder to me. It feels like this is like the PS3 DVD remote just with like a whole disk drive. I don't know if I'm making any
No,
sense.
I mean, I gotta assume that the primary, like the largest moneymaker of disc-based media has to be video games still, right? I mean, nobody is buying movies anymore. The movie market took a fat shit once streaming got good enough and internet was like available. No one's buying music CDs, so everyone that is buying a disc is buying a game. And right now it's like a 30-70, 40-60 kind of split in favor of digital. So Sony wants to maintain that. They want to keep growing that, but they also know they would just lose 30% of their sales if they cut out discs entirely.
Right. When it comes to home media, in 2019, disc sales had dropped to 3.29 billion, down to 2.45 in 2020, down to 1.97 in 2021, and another 19% in 2022. So it's been
And that's
dire for a
all
while.
disc media, or is that movies,
Movies and television. So 50% of the market is still DVDs. 30, almost 40%, I believe, is Blu-ray, and then the very, very slim margin of that is 4K UHD, which is an extremely niche market that I don't see picking up. So to me, this really is just about hedging their bets in what is a soft transition away, which we've speculated for years and years, and we thought the PS4 would be the last console with a disc drive, right? That was 10 years ago. So it really is just a soft transition into like, okay, right now it's an option so people don't get totally mad at us. In 5 years, we won't even give the option. Then we can jack our games up to $80 or $90, right? And people are just going to pay it, and they know that that's the case. So the writing is on the wall.
Is there any non-capitalistic reason for an entirely digital-based distribution system for video games to cost $80 for a release?
I think you can make the argument that games cost, as much as blockbuster movies to make these days. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars in some instances. That, like, sure, the money invested and the time spent is another 20% price increase. Like, are you still getting your money's worth? Like, if you're buying Starfield and putting 300 hours into it, like, you're still getting your money's worth, right? But no, for there to be a disparity between the physical and the digital, certainly there shouldn't be. I've always maintained that digital should be cheaper, especially if they're trying to get people to go digital only. Like, give me an incentive to go digital only.
And if you were to theoretically take that option away and Sony's like, the PS6, we're not doing physical media anymore. That game, my God of War 6 or whatever, better be $50 if you're not paying to burn this to a disc, if you're not paying for all these cases, and if you're not paying for shipping, and if you're not paying for distribution, and if you're not paying for all the logistics that come with a physical release. I'm not paying you fucking $70 for this game. That's bullshit. You literally finish making it, you push a button, and it is able to be distributed digitally. Like, that's crazy.
The easy PR spin is, we'll renegotiate our publisher share, right? To make it seem like the creators of these games and the people licensing these games get more of a cut through the digital marketplace. And that might already exist. I don't know how that's structured. I imagine it largely doesn't. And there's probably not a difference for publishers and developers between physical and digital sales, but Sony certainly makes a bigger cut on the digital marketplace, like no doubt. Man, it just fucking sucks. And I know we're in this weird spot with physical media that like I alluded to earlier, like your day one disc is not actually the game you think you're playing. Even if the entire game is on the cart or on the disc, it is a day one version, most likely. And in some instances might not even be playable. In some instances, like maybe Zelda, for example, I have my day one cart. I will always have my buggy, broken day one cart, and I will cherish that. You know what I mean? That Tears of the Kingdom. So, but in a lot of instances, it's like game requires 30 gigabyte download. Game requires 90 gigabyte download. So you're not even buying the entire game. It really, for me, just comes down to A, I like to have things on my shelf, and B, like I did with my Switch games. Like I had all these Switch games that I had owned and later didn't play or play them on a different console, and I sold them for hundreds of dollars. And I'm like, thank God I was able to recoup my money on that. You know what I mean? Instead of just sitting with a library full of titles that I either played elsewhere or didn't play at all. So also the good old days, being able to just be like, play this game and handing it to your friend. I know we don't do that because we're adults with money, but like
Also, we live far away from each other. We don't have that opportunity.
that too.
I'm about to have you ship me your Spider-Man 2 disc so I can play this fucking game sooner.
Yeah, literally, right? But the upside, Chris, is that you could get it, play it, and then sell it and only lose $12 on it, and then buy it again later. That's you couldn't do that digitally.
Yeah, man, I've bought so much stuff from Nate in the last couple months since he's gotten into this like big purge of all of his physical media, basically except for like his Zelda physical copies. Like he's selling everything. I bought Dead Space from him for $30. Now I've got that ready to go for spooky season. $30.
Oh.
That's like a $40, $45 game on the resale market. But he's like, I don't care. I played it. I'm done with it. I'll recoup a little bit of my money back, and look at that.
There you go. PS5 Pro? What's the deal with that?
I don't think it's going to happen.
Ever?
I don't think we're going to get that Pro version of these consoles this generation. They're not as underpowered as they were last time around.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
And developers are still struggling to even like make games that run on these consoles. So why would they give them even more power to fail upward even more? Like,
yep,
it's unreasonable, and I don't think they could make a Pro that people would want to buy. Like, what would it cost? Like a PS5 Pro would be like $700.
No, it's crazy. Yeah, they don't have we've been getting more and more iterative for the last 3 console generations, right? That we're practically at console as service at this point. You know what I mean? And like the PS4 and their subsequent iterations lasted a long time. And I think we're going to see something really similar with the PS5, that it's just going to be the Slim. And if they can continue to make them smaller to cut costs and to maybe increase the storage right out of the gate, we may get like a, I don't know, Slim X or something. I don't know. But yeah, there's just not any meaningful increase in what these things could do at this exact moment in time that wouldn't make it an entirely different console with an entirely different specific thing, like AR, for example, which switch to ? You know what I mean?
Yeah, whatever. Oh, God. God forbid it's Nintendo who tries it. And get the Wii 2, or the Wii 3, I guess.
Labo.
Mario Kart Home Circuit, or whatever the fuck it was. That was AR, right?
Kinda, yeah. Yeah.
I personally would prefer just launching into a PS6 2 years from now. Like, go back to the old school days where this is a 5-year console.
It won't be 2 years from
generation.
now.
No,
It won't be, but that's what I would prefer.
You're gonna go an entire console generation without output from like 3 of your biggest studios. Like, just have nothing from Sucker Punch, nothing from or they already got God of War Ragnarok, which is a PS4 game, so nothing from Santa Monica and nothing from Naughty Dog.
Oh, Christ. Yeah.
You're just on the back of Insomniac.
The rumor mill is going strong about a sort of expand-alone style God of War threequel.
I could see it. Yeah.
It's a choice. It's
throw
going to
in
be
some multiplayer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be like Ghost of Tsushima with its multiplayer horde mode thing. Yeah. They'll crank it out, whatever.
I am personally quite weary of the promise of, like, don't worry, we can do 4K 60 now. It's like I've bought multiple consoles with that promise. There's no reason that the PS5 shouldn't be able to do it. And by all accounts, Spider-Man is going to give us options to hit the frame rate we want. I don't want options. I want you to make a fucking game that comes out and runs the way that it should on a piece of hardware that's this expensive.
Yeah, well, the PS4 Pro ruined that for everyone.
Yeah, and if we were to do a PS5 Pro, like the larger a gap you create between the targets for these developers, we're seeing it with the Series X and the Series S.
Never going to happen again, just based on the way that the devs are so fucking sick. They're like, if you want our game on Xbox, like, it is not going to run on the Series S. Like, this is not an experiment that's going to be repeated. It has failed. It's over.
Yeah, pretty
Despite
unfortunate.
it's selling so well. So maybe the next Xbox is not trying to be the most powerful console. Maybe they're trying to do the Nintendo thing and say, hey, here's something cheap that people can buy and that developers can actually develop for without busting out like 6 outside studios just to develop art assets for it. Like, let's not do 4K 60.
And is
let's
digital
do 1080.
only. That's the other thing that's keeping that price point down. Because that's like a $300 machine. And I kicked the tires on it over the summer because Starfield was coming and I had the money. But I'm like, it's not going to run well on this. So why in God's name would I...
it's not going to run well anywhere. So Bethesda...
That's a little disingenuous, but I like the bit.
Starfield was the best technical launch Bethesda's ever had by a large margin.
And that's from EJ's mouth. That is from EJ Olsen's mouth.
It's got issues, and the game itself, I'm pretty over with pretty quickly.
I'm glad they could limbo underneath that 10-foot bar that they had set for themselves in the past.
Well, for real though, yeah. It's what can you say? But I hear that the experience on Series S is perfectly playable, but it's putting a strain on developers. And again, the larger that gap is, I mean, you're only at the end of the day really going to be able to cater to the lowest common denominator. So you're going to hold back your Series X's, you're going to hold back your PS Pros, you're going to hold back PC for certain. Yeah,
it's not worth it.
Yeah, so it's just unfortunate. So I'd rather get a PS6 sooner than later. I don't need a 10-year console generation. I don't need another one of those. That's way too long.
Well, you'll get a PS6 once they can make it for $500.
Right, and that it is something that is a meaningful improvement in what the PS5 offers. Because otherwise there's just no point. Like, just keep producing the thing you're producing now, and maybe we'll get a Pro in like 3 or 4 years. But I think that's more likely than PS6 coming in 2 or 3 even.
Especially since we're still getting PS4 games.
Right, exactly. Spider-Man 2, I mean, kind of. Well, I won't say it's the first. Final Fantasy's running okay.
Well, Ratchet & Clank was PS5 exclusive, but that easily could have been on PS4. I don't care what they say about how fast it loaded in. Like, that was just exactly. They cashed it in RAM. Like, they could have done that on PS4 too.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Why is this Lord of the Rings Gollum apology sitting on IGN as a new posted October 9th?
Because they used ChatGPT to write the apology letter.
Oh, is that just cut? That's what. Wow.
Can't afford to pay anybody to do it because the game fucking tanked. Oh man!
Yeah. And it even like typoed the name of the game. They called it Lord of Ring Gollum.
Lord of Ring. No, wow, that is something else, guys.
Lord of Ring.
I was really hoping to get that on Switch on my shelf from you guys for winning the Whammy League, but there's no way in hell that game's actually coming out on Switch.
If it does, it's yours. But at this point,
I have to stick with a PS5 version.
We'll get you a custom Switch case for it on Etsy or some shit, so it can be on the shelf.
I need it. I earned it.
You deserve it.
I deserve this. I'm an adult man.
You sucked so hard. You sucked the hardest and the most.
If you win both the Whammy League and the CC League this year, I will drive my car to the ocean. An update on the Whammy League.
No
the
suicide.
Totals as they sit right now.
Oh, I wish I'd have known this was happening. Now I'm sad.
Nick, you are sitting at -66 with 1, 2, 3 releases to go.
3 points from glory.
Chris, you are sitting at 15. 20, 25. You're sitting at 25 because you have 2 games that do not have scores. So you're doing almost as well as Brennan in the other league. I'm sitting at a round 0 with 1 slot and 1 game left. Not how I thought things were going to go. I thought I was in the pole position there. I was hitting negative bombs after negative bomb, and then Nick is just like 37, 53, 57. Like, just some real stinkers, bud.
I know how to pick them, dude.
Congratulations, you did it. That league is over.
It is over. I would like to do the Whammy League again next year. We will not do the group chat league, okay? The group chat itself is dead. The league is dead.
Yeah.
Other news. Tell us about these layoffs, Nick. It's been a busy 2 weeks.
Oh my fucking God.
Yeah, we're at, well, I mean, yeah, a couple weeks ago was end of quarter, so that's when a lot of the big news happens. It's when you get new game announcements just dropped out of nowhere. It's when you get layoffs. It's when, it's a hot time for news developments. The biggest, I would say, is Epic. I think they had a layoff of around 16% of their workforce, which added up to about 850 people. Citing, among other things, that Fortnite is slowing down a little bit. And a lot of the new acquisitions, as far as people who are spending money, they're spending money on the creator content, which Fortnite introduced within the past couple of years. And that hasn't been as profitable for them. They get more money off of skins and selling those. So put a little bit of that blame on there. And I don't think they actually put any blame on it, but like the big smoking gun, I think, is Epic and their lawsuit against Apple and them getting Fortnite pulled off of the iOS store. So you got to imagine there was a ton of kids that were playing Fortnite on their iPads and iPhones, and suddenly they're not playing there anymore. They're not just going to play somewhere else. They're going to play something else. They're going to play Roblox. They're going to play Minecraft. And it seems like this weird sort of crusade that Tim Sweeney went on is biting him in the ass, and they had to let go over 800 people because of it.
Corporate greed, one way or the other, has screwed over to these people, and this is another problem with games as a service. Is like, do you possibly have enough work to justify the size of your workforce when all you're doing is like tweaking the map every 6 months and making new skins for people to download? Like, they're not working on a new game, you know. So it's just collapsing under the weight of their own bullshit.
I don't know how much of it is just like actually cutting people that weren't working. I don't think really any of it had to do with that. Like, if that's the case, then that's on the back of hiring managers and hiring too many people, which they probably did do. But a lot of it is Fortnite was this huge unexpected success. Epic is like a middleware company. You know, they make Unreal Engine. They make this very popular development tool for other studios that make games. They used to make like Gears of War. They made the Unreal Tournament games. They're like kind of a mid-tier developer that stumbled into this huge success, and they tried to turn it into a long-term thing by launching the Epic Game Store, and that was a failure. They tried to take on Apple, the billion-dollar company. That was a little bit
trillion-dollar
foolish
company.
thing. Yes, the trillion-dollar company. Excuse me, the multi-trillion-dollar company as well. And that was foolish. And they tried to make the temporary thing into a long-term thing, and they've been failing on all those fronts. They've tried some publishing. I don't think that's like really in the scale of like what they're trying to do long-term. But it is unfortunate that this company grew to the size that they did, and they could not maintain it, and then they suddenly just have to. I don't know if they have to. I mean, they're obviously still making money. I don't know what their balance sheet looks like. I don't know their books, but 800 people is a lot of people. 16% of the company is a large portion of the company. It looks disastrous. I don't know if it's them trying to appease shareholders. They're not publicly traded companies, so we can't look at their stock value or anything like that. They're owned partially. They've got like a 30% investment from Tencent, but it's mostly owned by Tim Sweeney. And 800 people. That's a lot of people. He is responsible. Like, he has to be held responsible for laying off that many people if he's majority owner of the company.
That is exactly what I was just going to say. It's just another fucking example in the late capitalist fucking wasteland that is the United States of America of a CEO falling backwards into success in a genre of game that was still in its nascent stages, that PUBG explodes and the battle royale is suddenly the thing, and they happen to release Fortnite that apes a lot of what PUBG does and does it a little bit better and has better service support and has way more appeal to kids than PUBG did with its bland ass maps and really boring aesthetic, and becomes an overnight success, and they learn all the wrong lessons from it, where it's like, oh, we are this company now that Fortnite's going to be around forever because everybody loves battle royales. We got all these kids playing and all these influencers playing. Everybody loves Fortnite. It's ubiquitous, right? So it's going to make money forever. And then for their CEO to get into a fucking pissing match with Apple, Jesus Christ, with no conception whatsoever for the human cost that was going to result from this, because you were going to lose. You are going to lose. This is not a David and Goliath story. This is so the size of Apple, their power, their effect on the United States economy, their outsized influence on the way that decisions get made as a multi-trillion with a T dollar company, an obscene, a disgusting amount of wealth. And we know what that means in the Western world when you have that degree of wealth. This jackass picks a fucking fight with that company.
I do want to interject and say it was a noble fight. It is a fight that more people should try and take, maybe more on a unified front, because fuck Apple and their business practices, but they were always going to lose.
Yeah, fuck Apple. Fuck Apple. It's fuck Apple and have a thought in your head, Tim Sweeney. It is both of those things. Absolutely fuck Apple. Absolutely fuck the App Store and the way that they're making money on that is disproportionate to the actual service that they're providing.
Yeah, it's one thing, for him to take on this holy war is totally fine. And if he wants to do that, but then also to make weird commercials that are parodies of the very famous Apple commercial from the 80s with the Olympic athlete like throwing the hammer at the TV, like doing that but with Fortnite characters and selling merch saying free Fortnite. Like that turns into a weird yes, I have this fight that I have and I believe in, and a lot of people should believe in it, but then dragging the company behind it, and it's suddenly an Epic problem. Weird.
Right, exactly. This is a Tim Sweeney problem. And then for you to lay off 16% of your fucking workforce, 800 people, because you wanted to get in a pissing match with Apple, noble though it may be, maybe get some fucking support, maybe make this a class action suit instead of waging war on your own with no thought to the human cost that it's going to bring to your workforce. This is bullshit. I hate it. The rank and file people working in these companies are always the first to suffer and the last to see a goddamn dollar from the success that was earned on the sweat of their brows and the backs of their labor. All of these fucking companies should be unionized. If there were ever a piece of evidence to suggest in the late capitalist realities that we are existing in right now, that video game workers need to be unionized, it is this, because you do not know when your CEO is going to make incredibly ill-advised decisions, and you are going to be the first person to suffer for it. It is not going to be him. It's not going to be the people running the company, unless it's Unity, which I'm sure we're going to talk about in a second. Unionize everything. Unionize everything. Every aspect of game development. This should have been done years ago. And in this moment right now in the US, where labor is finally making a resurgence, organized labor, capitalize on this, pun intended. Seize upon this moment. Make it happen. For fuck's sake, protect yourselves. You don't deserve to work in these goddamn conditions. You don't deserve to crunch just for the sake of the project, just because you know that this is a good job and it's an industry you believe in and it's a story that you're willing to tell. You don't have to work fucking 90 hours a week. You don't have to do that. If you're in a union, they will protect you from doing that. Unionize the whole fucking industry and do it now.
CD Projekt Red workers are trying to unionize in the wake of their layoffs. The problem is we've got decades of union busting on a level that, I mean, and successfully so, but like it's hard to unionize. People are scared to try because they think literally we saw this during COVID. 2 missed paychecks is literally disaster for the majority of Americans. You know what I mean? So the idea of like, we can try and unionize and like be the inciting group that changes the industry, or we're just all going to lose our jobs and they're going to outsource us to fucking, Korea or something. And just like these corporations have been doing since the 80s, really, it's easy to say the workers have the power. It's like, do we? Do we have the power?
Yes, we do have the power. They cannot treat you this way. Howard Schultz at Starbucks literally just lost a lawsuit where Howard Schultz got caught because he's a piece of shit, got caught with his fucking pants down of improperly firing and cutting shifts down and cutting pay. Not cutting pay, cutting hours down and firing people who were trying to union organize. He has lost in court. I know that it will be a long process. I know that you may not see the immediate results. I get that. But we have got to have somebody be the first to do it, or it is not going to happen. You can be the first. You could be the first, Epic Games. You could do this, as 800 of your brothers, sisters, and siblings have been laid off because Tim Sweeney wanted to measure dick sizes with Apple. And of course, he's going to lose that fight. You could be the first. Somebody has got to be the first. And I know it's going to suck. I recognize that.
It's worth noting, again, Epic versus Apple, a real David versus Goliath, and something that needed to happen and I wish would continue to happen. It sucks that there's a human cost to this, but it's worth noting that Tim Sweeney is, by some accounts, it depends on where you look, worth almost $10 billion. I know he has a controlling interest in Epic, but $10 billion, right? I don't know what his salary is, and a lot of that worth is in his controlling shares of the company. But like Epic makes between $4 and $6 billion a year just on V-Bucks for Fortnite. You know what I mean? Like an absurd amount of money.
But we have to fire 800 people.
800. Mind you, what was slipped into all of this news is that V-Bucks is increasing.
So they're literally going to fire 800 people and then say, give us some more money. Yep. That is what they are going to say. Are you fucking kidding me? Hey, Tim, how about you take a goddamn pay cut, you billionaire son of a bitch? You don't need that extra 800 people's worth of salaries for your 7th home and your 6th boat and your private fucking airplane.
This is the problem with our corporatist structure.
Yes.
That the board of directors and your shareholders, they don't care if you're doing anything meaningful in the world. They don't care if your product is good. They care that their profits increase every quarter after quarter, year after year. And at some point, that is literally impossible to do without either completely collapsing in on yourself or literally running slave encampments in fucking China to mass produce your fucking product. I don't know how you fix that fucking problem without a complete collapse of our corporatist nation.
Burn it down!
I mean, I just, it's something that'll never be fixed, but they don't care. It's like, no, I want my profits to be 3% more or 6% more or 14% more than they were last quarter. Every quarter in perpetuity, or else people are going to get fired, heads are going to roll. And of course, it's not Tim Sweeney getting fired or ousted because profits were down after this lawsuit. No, it's okay. We can save ourselves, a cool $800 million or whatever by laying off a few people, and that'll keep our books looking nice enough for the next investors meeting. And that's bullshit.
Yeah, it wasn't just Epic that had layoffs, but that was clearly the big one. A couple other notable ones were, I think it was just, I say just, but it's weird. Like you said, EJ, I think it's really difficult for unions to pop up in this industry because of how much outsourcing there is. Studios don't make a game, or like a game is not made by a studio. It's made by like a dozen, like minimum at this point for the large like AAA games. So, for example, I think the QA that Naughty Dog had, I don't know if that was internal. I think it might have been contract work, and contracts, you sign the contract, you know what you're getting paid for up front. If they don't renew the contract, then is that a layoff? Is that you getting fired? Like, no, that's just you not getting your next job, which would be your next contract. It's tough to kind of keep that in mind, I guess. I have sympathy for that. I was a contract worker before I got hired on full time. So that happened for Naughty Dog and their QA department. There was layoffs. I don't know how many. It was just notable because the big story that came out of that was that their multiplayer factions game is on ice indefinitely. So like, whatever, that was not a game. That was a piece of concept art and a hope from some diehard fans of a bolted on multiplayer mode from a popular game 10 years ago. Like, it's nothing. It's whatever. But then also BioWare had, they did not renew a contract with an outside QA firm, and those workers were unionized, but they were laid off after not getting the contract renewed because there was no contract. There was no work to be done, so they were let go. And I don't know what was part of their union negotiations. I'm not part of that union. I do not know. I did not look into the details of it, but it's like, yeah, layoffs are hitting everywhere and it sucks.
And the contract work part is just another piece of it. And this is across all big tech. This is something that I am intimately familiar with, unfortunately, because of both my dad and my youngest brother who work in tech industries. Dad is a radiation safety and laser technology safety guy. And he worked for a long time in the Bay Area at the Facebook campus for Oculus, doing laser safety with all of their research into virtual reality, designing their headsets. Lots of lasers go into that. He was never employed formally by Facebook as an employee. He was a contract worker, and he continued to be a contract worker. You have no fucking job security as a contract worker, and you're also, the company's not obligated to give you the same benefits as a contract worker. This happened with Joey as well, in different stints at places like Amazon, in places like SpaceX, with which he is no longer employed, which I am thankful for, because Elon Musk is a fucking psychopath. And as soon as he got bored with all of the shit he was doing with Twitter, X, he rolled back up to the SpaceX campus in Redmond and started fucking shit up and causing more problems and trying to meddle with things that he literally does not understand because he's not this fucking altruistic super genius that everybody paints him out to be. He's just a fucking schmuck with a blood emerald mine who made a lot of money and had a couple good ideas he could get smarter people to execute for him semi-successfully.
But he bought into a couple of good ideas. Not that they were his
Right.
ideas. He just bought himself into great things and profited.
Just like every great billionaire.
Well, basically. I mean, I don't know if I told this story on the podcast or not, but during the pandemic, we were in the Discord with like Dre, shout out Windows Defender, and Max and my brother, and I just was getting fucking roasted up and down, talking about how Elon Musk was a dumb dipshit motherfucker. And this is 3 years ago, kind of right before the public turn on the guy. And everybody, even my own brother, was like, "You're a fucking idiot. Like, he's a genius just because, he's not literally a rocket scientist doesn't mean he's an idiot." And I was like, "No, Elon Musk is a fucking idiot who's never done anything other than throw his money and his dick around, both literally." And to see that bear out over the last 3 years, and every once in a while something really egregious happens and I tag everybody in the tweet and just sent it. Sorry, the post. We're doing posts now. We don't do tweets anymore.
Thanks, Elon. God, I'm hot. I'm heated. I'm heated! Talking about all this capitalistic bullshit. I need another beer.
We're at almost 2 hours here. I am getting hungry. Nick, you said you've got a little thing you might want to do with us. Chris said he had some games he potentially wanted to talk about. We could do both. We could do one. I take it there's no other pressing news that you want to talk about?
No, it's just a lot of depressing layoffs. It's not pressing, just depressing. And it's like, what do you as a consumer, what are you supposed to do about that? Like, complain online? How far does that get you these days? It's all just AI bots on Twitter anyway. It's a bunch of verified idiots that either are real or aren't. Like, if they are, what's worse? A verified bot or an actual verified person on X at this point?
This is me sweating, just trying to decide which button to press. I mean, there's no right answer. They're equally
Real
horrendous.
Sophie's choice.
Yeah.
Trolley problem. So yeah, there's like no recourse as far as what you can do as a consumer. And you just say, boy, I hope that it gets better. Wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't it? Well, Chris isn't even sitting here to talk about his game, so why don't you introduce to us what it is we're going to close with today, Nick?
Timing, I'm here. I had to pee.
Valid. Chris, if you want to go ahead and just talk about some Final Fantasy thoughts, I would love to hear about your time with that game.
Well, I'm at 143 in this recording, and I would love to do the quiz segment. I'd rather say Final Fantasy, and just talk really briefly about this time capsule that I experienced on Sunday, if that's okay with the group.
Welcome to the club, my friend. I know the narcissist in you is loving listening back.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. So with all the cat related stuff, I had a trip planned this weekend, last weekend, I should say, up to Detroit with my buddy Russell from grad school. Shout out Russell, who is a real one. He's a lifer. That is somebody that I'm going to know and be in touch with for a long time, and thankfully so. He is always down for an adventure. He's a Detroit Lions fan. So for his birthday, which was in the summer, his wife Laura asked him, what's something that you want to do? And he's like, hey, I think the Lions are actually going to have a really good season. I'd love to go to a Lions game. Lions are having a great season. They're 4-1. And Russell's like, well, I know y'all have a lot of stuff planned. And this is the person, mind you, that I miss his wedding because of the JetBlue bullshit a couple weeks ago. He's like, well, we're looking at a Lions game, and I'm thinking I probably can't go. We've got so much planned this fall. And he's like, October 8th. And I'm like, that is the one weekend I don't have something planned. So we had this trip. I had a ticket. The tickets were too expensive for Tiffany didn't want to get one. So I got one. We were going to drive up together. Russell and I were going to go to the Lions game. Tiffany was going to hang out, get some work done, and then we're going to drive back. So I thought it was going to be split driving from Bowling Green to Detroit, which is approximately an 8-hour adventure with stops. Although I don't stop until the gas tank's empty when it's just me. with all of the cat related stuff, we don't know when Houdini's coming home. She's going to need to have somebody there. Tiff stayed behind, which meant I was doing those drives by myself. That is a lot of driving. And on the way back Sunday, we tailgated Sunday morning. And Russell and I, when we tailgate. So we went out to the spot in Detroit, the Eastern Market, which was fucking hopping. Coolest fucking tailgate I've ever been a part of collectively. But we split, it's like 9 a.m., 10 a.m., right? NFL tailgate. We split a 12-pack of seltzer. I had a couple beers at the stadium as soon as we got there, about 11:30. And then I spent the rest of the day prior to the drive getting to where I could drive. But I'm tired, guys. I am coming to sobriety in the middle of a day. I'm fucking tired. So I threw on the original Chris, Nick, and EJ Console Crusade podcast episode, which was The Last of Us Part 2. Just to kind of listen back to like, man, that was my first time on this podcast. I wonder I wonder what's changed since then. And it was a really interesting little window back in time, and partially because it's sort of like the more things change, the more they stay the same kind of thing. You know what I mean? Where it's like Brennan Allen is mentioned twice. EJ talks about Breath of the Wild being bad and Wind Waker being amazing. Nick goes on a skill tree rant with regards to video games. I remark how I hate when people form judgments about media they haven't consumed. All these things that are just so quintessential to like the three of us since we started all doing this together since then. I'm like, man, that's so funny that all these things are like, they were coming up in July 2020 and they still come up from time to time. It was really,
we're broken records.
It was really funny in that regard. But I felt like it gave me a good opportunity to sort of, I think that is like, and I've listened back to almost every pod that we've done together since I started coming on the show regularly. I think that's like one of the best game pods that we've ever done. And I know that we weren't all playing The Last of Us Part 2, but that was part of it too, is that like between the three of us and our game taste, like there's a couple things that overlap with two of us and almost nothing that overlaps with all three of us. And so it's sort of like a fool's errand to try and find a game that we're all going to be like really excited and engaged with. Right. But like EJ, like we both laid out like such great cases and arguments for the things that this game did so well and things that at different points we thought maybe I thought they did well and you thought they didn't do quite as well as they could have, but it just is like so articulate and specific. And we're just so excited to like talk about this game. And Nick, you're like, it would have been so easy for you to just almost be a non-factor, but all of the questions you asked were so useful to the overall discourse about this game and like prodding us to elaborate further about things and to defend viewpoints but always from a place of like, I want to know more about why you think this. And I want to hear what you two as players of this game think about it based on some of the discourse that's been happening online. And because it was my first time on the podcast, there was a sense of, there was not like crosstalk, but we were really like waiting for everyone to lay out like their full thing that they needed to say before we came back to let me respond to things. And I was like, man, this is just such a really good reset for me to remind myself of like, we make really great content. I think, we've got great things to say. We've got great things to say about games, even if it isn't necessarily a game that we played specifically. And there's so many ways to remain engaged and to offer things that can lead to good discourse, even if it's not something that we're super duper familiar with. And I often feel like, just to be candid for a second, that I kind of feel like a lot of the time I'm not really as like well read into a lot of this stuff as I need to be to like contribute well on this podcast, because you're both like so steeped in this industry in a way that I'm just like not. where you'll mention some stuff that I'm like, I don't have a fucking clue what you're talking about. Or Nick will name drop all these like really specific developers or composers or executives or folks that I went like, man, I don't have that breadth of knowledge. But if Nick can like be a really solid contributor to a podcast on a game he didn't even play and be really present and engaged with that discourse, like there's no reason why I can't do that when we're talking about stuff that I don't have the breadth of knowledge for. So it's just like, it was just awesome to like go back and hear all these things and be like, damn, like I'm taking so much away from this that I think is going to make me like a better contributor on this podcast, and to just like be a reset back to, we do great shit and we've always done great shit. And I'm excited to do more great shit.
You guys are very easy to, obviously, very easy to just get going. So my job is very easy in that regard. It's just once you get heated and passionate and engaged in a topic, I just have to sort of poke at it a little bit and you just spin out of control. You're just a slinky and I'm at the top of the stairs.
And that's the other thing too that I want to acknowledge, like on pod as well, that before it became a bit that like Chris and EJ antagonize each other, like there was
always been that way.
There was a little bit of it, but there was also, and I know I said this to you in chat, right? It was also done like very tastefully and respectively. Like there was, in the Last of Us podcast, EJ makes a joke about like not having good taste, and like Nick always tells me I don't have good taste, and I was like, yeah, you lost your taste before coronavirus made it popular, and like that's a good one-liner. But when it came to like getting into the nitty-gritty, it was all about like, let's just like talk about the shit in a way that like, I feel like I put you through your paces a little bit too much last week when we were doing critical hits.
Oh, you did.
And it made me,
you did.
And it made me think back to like, I think that has kind of like taken on a life of its own of the EJ Chris antagonism. Like that almost became like more antagonism that is good for the dynamic of things. And so I've been like thinking about that this week and listening back to that one and went like, like there could be like more selective with those moments and just let the discourse be the discourse, and the disagreements arise if there are disagreements, and I'm sure there will be disagreements, but not to like seek it out or make it like a focal point of things. This is a really interesting experience. And I was fucking exhausted and driving and open to all of these things in that moment because of that exhaustion and
emotionally receptive,
quite vulnerable in his hangover,
getting sober after a day drunk and being like, oh my God, I have 4 hours left. Like I have to go to Bang and like some food at the next truck stop, and then like turn on something with human speech that I could be engaged in, and just happened to be like, let's throw that on, and did me good.
I'm gonna have to go back and listen now. When you brought this up in chat, I thought you were talking about The Last of Us television week to week that we were doing. You're talking about the 3 years ago.
The OG, my first appearance on this podcast with my terrible, terrible audio quality.
Oh yeah, that's unfortunate. I thought your first appearance was us talking about
Donkey Kong Country, wasn't it?
No. Before that,
that happened later.
Mario
later.
That happened later.
Mario thing. Did it really?
Yeah, I know, right?
Wow.
Like, because that was the 35th anniversary was 2020. Because it came out in 85.
Was
yeah.
OG Mario Bros.
Yeah, my first episode was The Last of Us Part 2, because you were like, I know we're both playing this game. I know that we're going to have different takes. That it's going to make for some good discourse. And I was like, okay, yeah, maybe I could come in for an episode. You know, the rest is history.
Now you're stuck with us, bitch. Our plan
got wrapped in.
Very good. Very good. It's always good to have a little bit of self-reflection. You know, I of course listen back to these podcasts multiple times between editing and then listening to it in its entirety. I know it sounds stupid because we literally do a podcast for 30 people, but being able to be a better listener and trying to be more concise, which I think I've become ever so slightly over the years, and that part of that is just listening back and understanding how things go out of the interplay between us. And
EJ, I would say you're cogent as fuck.
Cogent as fuck.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, I'm taking that to the bank.
Put that on a sticker. Somebody, please make some stickers for us. I want Console Crusade stickers.
Funny.
Oh, that's great.
Well, thanks for letting me wax nostalgic a little bit.
I will never stop you from showering us with praise.
Okay, Nick, what do you have to wrap us up here.
So just to do a similar format, but slightly differenter, what I've got for you today is a little how right, how wrong, how long. I'm going to go through the previous week's winners of critical hits, and I'm going to ask you, how long does it take to beat those games?
Oh, great.
And I'm going to ask you to show your hands. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, EJ, for being so good to me. This will be very quick. I'm not even going to give you the results until I'm running through the end. So, EJ, I'll have you start first because you lost by 1 point to me last week. How long does it take to beat The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time?
Of course, if I were to look at howlongtobeat.com.
I'm going main story.
Main story.
Just main story.
I have two answers that immediately popped in my head, like almost at the same time.
Give me one of them.
I'm going to go 16 hours.
16. Chris, how long does it take to beat The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time?
That's
12
too
hours.
long. I was got a 12 as my other answer, dude.
Chris, how long does it take to beat Vampire Survivors?
Oh, I don't even know this game. Oh, but Brendan told me a little bit about it last week. 17 hours.
How engaged were you? How engaged were you?
17
EJ,
hours.
How long does it take? 17, got it.
23 and a half hours.
23.5. Okay. EJ, how long does it take to beat Halo 3?
Halo 3 campaign. Ooh, if I recall, that was a shorter one. Oh,
Chris is poker facing poorly.
9.5 hours.
9.5. Chris.
I hate to. Oh, we have such a great rhythm going right now, but are we doing this Price is Right rules or just generally closest?
No. It's just the pure delta between the two.
Okay, 8.
Price is Right is bullshit anyway. 8. Chris, how long does it take to beat? Wait, I put Vampire Survivors on here twice.
No!
Excuse me.
Oh, fuck.
This is an accident. That would be funny though.
I remember the complaints
second
about
time.
Halo 3 being that the campaign was too short.
Yeah, it was so short.
Chris, how long does it take to beat The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild? Not how long does it take you to beat Breath of the Wild?
Yeah.
How long does it take a normal person?
I have questions, and those questions are: does this mean all divine beasts? Is that what we consider main story?
This is aggregate data based on people's submissions on the main story.
On how long?
Okay,
how
so-
long to beat? And it's main story 25.
25.
22 hours.
EJ? 22.
That's a
I wanted to
better
go
answer.
higher, but those main stories are shorter.
I know I have such a skewed perception of that because I stretched it out so long. Anyway,
EJ, how long does it take to beat Grand Theft Auto 4?
GTA 4, 27 hours.
Chris?
21.
Chris, how long does it take to beat Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3?
Oh, God, I don't even. 11 hours.
That was my answer. Fuck.
Was that
EJ?
that going to be your answer?
Literal 11 and a half hours.
11 and a half. Oh,
Literally 11 hours is my answer. It's probably closer to like 8 hours.
yeah, it can't.
Okay, from the top. You guys want to know?
I would love to know. Give us our answers and then give us the yes. Okay,
yes,
great.
I will. Yes, I will. For The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, EJ, you said 16 hours. Chris, you said 12. The actual time on how long to beat is 27 hours.
That seems
Whoa.
way too long.
Right? That seems a lot longer than I would have
That's
expected.
wild.
Vampire Survivors, both you have no experience with. EJ, you said 23 and a half. Chris, you said 17. How long to beat has it as 11 and a half hours.
Yes.
Wow.
Bit of a shorter experience. Halo 3. EJ, you said 9.5. Chris said 8. With the redemption story, it's actually 8 hours.
Wow.
Yo,
Right on the money. I think it's the only one that's on the money on this whole spread.
double points.
Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. No, I'm not going with that. Purely the math. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. EJ said 22. Chris said 25. The actual time on how long to beat is 50 hours.
That's ridiculous.
That's crazy.
Damn, that
I don't know
skewed
about
data.
that.
Skewed data.
I agree.
I mean, it's self-reported. People spent 50 hours with that game. I mean, there's also a main plus extras. There's completionist times. I mean, that's all.
If you
just
spent
submitted times.
50 hours only mainlining the main quest in that game,
It's a very open-ended game. What is the main quest? People think, oh, I do all the shrines and then I beat Ganon.
shrines aren't main
I'm
quest.
just saying,
Yeah, that's wacky.
self-reported. Grand Theft Auto 4. EJ, you said 27. Chris, you said 21. The actual time is 27 and a half. EJ, you were so
Beautiful.
So close.
Nailed it.
Right on the money there. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. EJ with 11 and a half, just going a little bit high. Chris staying at 11. The actual answer was 9.
Yeah.
Didn't I? What did I say? Did I even say? Oh, it's probably closer to 6 hours. Oh, whatever. Anyway.
Insert clip. So that gives us our deltas of Chris being 54 hours off the real times and EJ being 55 and a half hours off.
Did I just win one of these segments?
Wow.
You just won one of these segments.
My God,
Good job, Chris.
By a mere 90 minutes. God damn.
For real, yeah. I mean, at the final round, it was 50. What was it? Because Chris was 2 off. It was 52 and 53 in the final round. So it was like 1 away, but you went half point up the wrong way. If you went 1 point down, it would have been a tie. So very close indeed.
Damn.
For how right, how wrong, how long.
I reluctantly started working on my own critical hits for you schmucks.
Yes.
So, prepare yourselves.
I won't.
I'm already writing my next one. I'm also not going to research because I think it's fun to just think of games I know.
I'm not trying to shoehorn NFL 2K21, which doesn't have a how long to beat. That would have been the winning game in that round, but I had to go with the next one down because there's no how long to beat data on that one.
I respect the hustle, EJ. I'm not knocking your research. Your research was great. And I thought your justifications for games were well articulated. I just like I like the spontaneity of it and trying to just go like, well, what do I know and what do I like? And then I can talk about some stuff that I like, and I don't know. That's just
hope that I had a good score. Yeah.
Well, after being griefed as hard as I did by everyone in the group last time, I am coming for your souls. You are not going to like my criteria. It'll make you guys there'll be a lot of empty space while you guys scrounge for games for some of these questions. So
I'm ready to be hurt.
I'm excited. I have a thought on the categories, like a theme for the categories I want to write for the next time I host this, and I haven't fully fleshed it out because it's gonna be a bit of time until it comes around to me hosting again. But I'm eager for it, and it's just a good ass time.
Very good, very good. Well, we just crossed the 2-hour threshold. I don't know how much of this actually has to get cut out based on our thumbing and
not too much
shit talking our friends. I'm gonna keep all the Bob stuff in. Bob can go suck a cat tail. Listen, I'm just trying to bring it back to the cat thing, okay? But I'm picturing the cat tail, like the brown corn dogs,
Oh,
the thing that like expand in your mouth.
Yeah, they powderize basically. Yeah.
How do you know that?
You never ever ate a cat tail as a kid?
No. Why would I do that? That's gross.
Of all the weird things you did as a kid, you didn't eat a cat tail? You never licked a slug either, I bet.
No, I didn't.
No.
Neither did I.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then why would you say that?
Because a lot of kids lick slugs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're right to say that a lot of kids did stupid things, but to just assume that I would eat a cattail is, I don't know, projecting?
It looks like food.
Is that what that is?
It looks like food. You can't.
No.
I used to smoke Arborvitae droppings too. All the brown dead parts of the Arborvitae leaves. You roll them up into.
Yeah, it looks like weed, right?
it tastes like very not good tobacco.
Console Crusade podcast.
Arborvitae, man, that's tree of life.
That's what I'm talking about.
Dog.
When you're like in 8th grade and you suddenly develop an unhealthy obsession with the idea of smoking, but you have no access to anything because you live out in the country. So you just start rolling fucking Arborvitae fucking doobers. It's how a boy became a man.
Just fatty Vita doinks.
That's how a boy was mentally arrested in his development until he became a man. Just killing brain cells.
There we go. Console Crusade.
Arborvitae Doobies.
Loving a bit.
Arborvitae Doobies. It's fine. My students know what time it is with regards to me.
I live in Oregon, bitch. I can smoke all the Arborvitae I
I'm
want.
from Oregon.
Arborvitae. Legalize it.
Arborvitae Doobies.
Arborvitae, not even
my
once.
God. You didn't really. Did you really smoked Arborvitae clippings?
Oh yeah, bro.
EJ, what the fuck?
I was 12. What do you want me to say? I'm muting Chris.
Arborvitae Doobies. Arborvitae Doobies. That's wild, man.
Arborvitae Doobie Brothers.
It can't have felt good.